Hello all my Kenvians and welcome to another Once Upon a Time vlogs or Catching Up vlogs. I'm still not sure on a set name, but I think what I used on the YouTube video was Catching Up vlogs. And today I'm going to be watching The Thing You Love Most. Yes, the second episode of the first season in my journey to get caught back up with the show. Rather caught back up to where I was. So yeah, as before, if there's anything in particular that comes up that I feel like is worth discussing, I will pause the episode and proceed to do so. And yeah, afterward I will just have a discussion and go over my overall thoughts. So, see you in a few minutes. Or, well, in your case, see you after the cut. The unicorn. Now that's one thing I definitely do remember, and this was pointed out to me by Melina, and this is something that I will make sure to keep up on, but at the intro there's always something, and I'll do my best to keep up with that and try to check on what the significance is. So this time it's a unicorn. Ah.
So you decided to stay.
Observant. Important for a cop.
It's good news for our tourist business. It's bad for our local signage. It's a joke.
You can show yourself.
Rumpy Pumpy! Oh, he's glorious.
I'm not going to answer you, dear. So I suggest you excuse me. Please.
Ah, shit! Oh, Netflix. I really wish. Ugh. No! Stop! God, you're so... Stop it! Ugh. Netflix, get your shit straightened out. Especially with Disney opening its services soon. It's like, stop the autoplay! God. The Thing You Love Most. Such a glorious episode, if I do say so myself. Again, I don't know why I stopped watching this show. It's so good. The graphics, yeah, the special effects leave something to be desired, but everything else is done really well. So, to go over my notes real quick. First of all, Emma versus Regina is undoubtedly going to be the theme throughout at least the first season that I'm just going to continue to love. And I don't remember. I'm sure I mentioned something about this in the previous recording, but good Lord, if they ever get in a fist fight or just a fight in general, oh God, the deeply guy part of my brain will go haywire. Because they are both beautiful ladies, absolutely beautiful. But yeah, just I'm a guy, so Emma v. Regina, heart. I'm sorry. But the second note I wrote down is the Queen's Beloved. And again, I can't recall what all I talked about in the past, but I'm curious to find out more about her beloved. The love she had that Snow White is responsible for taking away. like, I can only assume that Snow White's responsible for either her lover going away completely or dying or being put to death. I don't know. But yeah, it's like I know that's a point I hadn't reached yet when I left off with the show before, so I'm really curious to find out more about this person, who they are, and whether or not they're, even if they were dead, could the curse have brought them back somehow? That doesn't seem that's part of the curse. It's really only people who are alive, or in Prince Charming's case, not completely dead. But yeah, the Queen's beloved. I'm really interested to find out more about him. And then Maleficent. Such a very small role, but one that I enjoyed the appearance of. This time around, I did enjoy more the the difference in style as far as how Maleficent worked, as opposed to her typical Disney-fied image, which can be seen all over, really. So I really like that. But my question is, especially since, to the best of our knowledge, or rather to the best of my knowledge, she's not dead, where is she in Storybrooke? And does she make an appearance through at least the first season? Because it's everyone from the world of fairy tales, or the world of magic. Melina's gonna kill me if I don't get that right eventually. I'm just gonna have to write down like a permanent note for myself. Regardless, yeah, I'm curious to know what she's up to in Storybrooke. But moving on from there, one thing that I definitely know I talked about in the previous recording, the gnome, or is it supposed to be a dwarf? Whatever it is, but the gathering of the darkest souls. And then when the first attempt at the curse failed and it's just laughing at the evil queen, I mean, it is hilarious. But that was one of the truly effective uses of the graphics in this show. It was simple, it was quick, it was just quick to stone, and then we fade into like the reality, like the actual stone figure, and it's so creepy. It has not exactly a Weeping Angels vibe to it, but something similar. Whereas it's like, with the Weeping Angels, the whole deal is like, if you're not looking at them, they'll get you. But in this case, it's more of, it's like this little statue was a living thing. And there's just not necessarily a horror, but a darkness to it that is just really intriguing to me. But moving on from there. Sidney Glass. Now, obviously, this is really just one of the first introductions we get to him in the show. I don't think he appeared in the first episode. Regardless, this is the one where we finally get to see him, and obviously he is the man in the mirror, shall we say? And I'm looking forward to reintroducing myself to him, but also getting to know more about the character as I get beyond where I left off previously, because it seems like a character who is loyal to Regina, as the Man in the Mirror was loyal to the Dark Queen, but might have ulterior motives, might be more of a freelancer, shall we say, than a bad guy. Like, he might not necessarily have one true allegiance. Just a thought. But okay, moving on from there. The use of the word crazy. And, well, in addition to that, Archie. Archie Hopper, I think it is, but Jiminy Cricket, basically. I like how, despite the fact that, with any TV show, when it comes to psychology or therapy, they're going to take some liberties as to what's something that a therapist would actually say or actually do. Obviously, a therapist would never actually just give their files away, even if they were asked to. But I feel like the way he talked about the word crazy and not using that kind of language around Henry. Obviously, that played into the story a little bit later in the episode, but that's something that I believe is true. Now, obviously, my wife would have more of an idea about this than me, but when you're dealing with someone who might have delusions, or they either believe in or possibly, from their perspective, perceive a world or a reality that we don't quite understand, that we can't understand, to use words like crazy when you're wanting to help that person. It's like, there are people who just don't care, people who could care less if they're being malicious or not, and they have no issue using the word crazy. But when you're someone who's wanting to help this person, when you're someone who cares about the person, using words like crazy can be extremely hurtful, and it won't necessarily break like their vision. It won't change what they believe, but it will potentially just irredeemably damage the relationship that you have with that person. Now, obviously, it's a different case here in the show, but in a similar case in reality, I mean, you're not going to have that happy ending, shall we say. It's not just going to be okay. Like, maybe through communication things could get better, but that's something that could permanently damage a relationship, especially if it's one that you treasure. So yeah, I really like how that was used in this episode. Moving on from there, one thing that I get from Henry, and it plays into another note that I wrote down, is that Regina cares about Henry. Or at least it seems like she does. I believe that part of her does care about, possibly even loves Henry. But when it comes to Henry himself, he has spent all of his life, or a large portion of his life, on the defensive. It's like the only mother he's known until now was Regina. But I've known people, and I'm sure many of you know people, who were raised in toxic environments, who were raised in abusive environments, where the parent or parents truly believe that they're doing what's right or what is best for their child, and for all intents and purposes, they are most likely doing their best. To give them the benefit of the doubt, they're doing their best. But that doesn't change how that affects the person. I'm sorry, before I get sort of like too complex, too lost into this conversation, or this discussion rather, I think that part of the acting from the actor that plays Henry, in the first episode, admittedly, it's like it felt more like it just wasn't good, solid acting. But in this episode, maybe it's because he had better direction, or he had had a chance to sort of get into the vibe of the character. But there are moments that were similar to the first episode, where it's like his acting seems a bit stunted. But what if it's sort of inspired by an actual mental issue? It's like it's something that sort of like he's almost stunted emotionally because of his life with Regina, because of living with her, because of being raised by her. I don't know, it just those certain ways he reacted to, like, when he was with Regina, it's like he was just very cold, very offset, very much in defense mode. Like he was cutting himself off from her. But then when he's with Emma, or even other people, he's able to open up because that feels like a safe space. But yeah, I don't know. I'm getting lost in the idea there, but I don't know. I feel like there could be something there, that the character itself, and possibly even in the first episode, just maybe a bit too much to where it seemed too much like bad acting, that part of how he acts is because of just the psychological, mental trauma he has. Who knows? I don't, because I have a lot of this show left to watch. You all probably do. But, moving on from there. The chainsaw! Just sawing down the part of the tree. And just another moment of, God, Emma, you're gorgeous. God, Regina, you're evil, but also gorgeous. I have issues. One thing about it's like, because I also mentioned that I truly believe that Regina does care. That she cares about Henry. Maybe it's as a form of like trying to redeem herself for what she did to her father, for the choice that she made. Or it could be that over time, like, she truly has developed care for him. She's developed love for him. And it's almost sort of a balancing act between herself as the evil queen and herself as Regina. And while she does remember that she is Regina, or I'm sorry, that she does remember that she is the evil queen, there's obviously still part of that spell that's over her, because of the fact that Rumpelstiltskin, or Mr. Gold, is able to use his influence, shall we say, if you please. So, I don't know, what if, yes, she is still the evil queen, but a part of the curse instilled I don't know if maybe necessarily another personality in her, or just living there for those 28 years, being there throughout that time, her personality started to change some, or she began to evolve as a person because she had found her happiness. She had gotten her revenge. So through that, maybe she grew in some ways. That's just sort of buried right now. I don't know. And maybe I'm overthinking it. But I'm sure Melina and some of the others will have something to say about that. Well, and I already mentioned Rumpelstiltskin's "please." That little line right there, which is so good. And just in case I didn't include it, because I did say this a few times while I was watching the episode, because I couldn't help myself. Rumpy Pumpy! Oh, it's going to drive some people crazy, undoubtedly. And I love it. The choice was a huge deal. I mean, that's a turning moment for the evil queen. It's like, yes, she's evil up to that point, but to a degree, especially in the second episode, that is meant to, in my eyes, kind of cut off any redeemability for her. Or at least that's the intention at that stage in the show. I do believe that the evil queen / Regina will get some redemption in some form. And by redemption, I mean, I don't think that she will always be purely evil. Just as she is now. Like the evil queen at that point, yeah, she's just purely evil. But since she became Regina, there have been some different areas of gray, or shades of gray, to her life. Which is actually kind of funny because the guy who plays the huntsman, aka the sheriff, is Christian Grey in the 50 Shades of Grey movie. Anyway. Yeah, I think there's a lot more to it there. So I'm blabbering on again. So forgive the ranting, or not so much the ranting, forgive the mindless blah, 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 talk. Next, the mother-daughter connection between Snow White, aka Mary, and Emma. I found that to be, I'm sure I commented on it before, but just that moment of Emma, at least temporarily, living with her mom without her mom knowing it, and Emma not really fully believing it, just kind of getting the impression there based on what Henry has told her and what the fact that Mary said that Henry told her that she's Snow White. So yeah, it's a funny little coincidence, and it's one that I know that they expand on, and it's played on nicely through the episodes that I have watched, and I'm looking forward to more of it. And finally, the thing that the quote of the episode that stood out the most to me, and it's what, well, going as far as the mother-daughter thing, that Mary says to Emma, the fact that you want to leave is why you should stay. And it plays into the theme started in the previous episode of wanting the person you care about to have their best chance. At that point, Emma believes that it's best if she leaves, because if she stays around, it's going to make it harder for Henry. It's going to drive Henry and his mother farther apart. But I keep wanting to say Snow, but Mary recognizes that the fact that Emma wants to leave because for that reason shows how much she cares about Henry, and that's why she should stay, because she cares about him so much. She wants him to be okay. She wants him to be better. So yeah, I found that quote in particular to be really, really good. And whether or not it was my quote of the episode in the Discovering Once Upon a Time video, Once Upon a Time, way back in the day, in a galaxy far, far away. It's definitely my quote now. So, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this vlog. I hope I didn't ramble on too much. Yeah, that's unlikely. But I am curious to hear your thoughts about what I've had to say here. If you have seen the original Discovering Once Upon a Time episode, which I have linked in the description down below, as well as at the end of this video, probably right here or right here is where it will show up. if you haven't seen it already. I'm curious as to what you think about what I had to say then versus what I've had to say now. Were they pretty similar? Were they pretty different? It's hard to say, just because it's a few years of different perspective, and I am very much in a different place in my life now than I was back then. So, until next time, everyone, I am Papa Kenn, and I will see you for the next episode, which, if I can get to it without it automatically starting, will be Snow Falls. So, if you don't mind, let's go over to the next episode, or again, if you haven't seen the original Discovering Once Upon a Time episode, click here. Please.